accepted. 7 o'clock, 13 West Sutton Road, at the Sims.
Needs to be read.
Purpose of, the Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 13th, 2007, at 7 p.m. at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Oxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation Commission by Heather Sims, Sutton, Mass. The project consists of replacing an existing dock with an aluminum 10-foot by 4-foot dock on map 8, parcels 43, on 13 West Sutton Road, Sutton, Mass. This person would like to continue this meeting to August 2nd, 2017.
Do you want to make a motion?
Make a motion, but with discussion first. The info, this is July 13th. Today is July 19th,
Oh,
for argument's sake.
All right.
But I'll make a motion to continue to August 2nd, 2017 at 7:35 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, so, what we're gonna do next is an unexpected business. And it's for 223 Worcester Providence Turnpike, Atlas Box. They're requesting a certificate of compliance. As far as I know, we have all the paperwork, and Brandon's apparently been there, so if it's okay with you guys, we can sign them off.
The engineer has submitted a letter saying the project has been built in substantial compliance. Submitted as-built drawings. Everything looks in order to me, everything's stable, so I think that's ready.
The only thing I noticed was on the as-built drawings, they made no reference to the plantings required out front.
The biologist, Art Allen, had a whole separate letter in that regard. Which,
He just walked by, too.
yeah, he's here too, but it satisfies me.
I wanted the biological roof there, but oh well.
Well, technically Art's a soil scientist, but he dabbles in the botany.
You want to vote on it first, Bob? Sure. Or are you making the motion by signing that?
Make a motion to grant a certificate of compliance to 223 West Providence Turnpike.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, if you want to pass it around, you can sign the plans also. That'd be great.
Does this have to be signed, too?
Something about a CFC for 7 Overlook Drive. We got all the stuff for that.
Which one?
7 Overlook Drive.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got all of the stuff here for that. Do you want to do that now, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Didn't we do this one?
Well, this was one that the lawyer contacted me, and I told him I needed the paperwork. This is the one that the CFC is for the
Old.
roadway and the drainage. But I know something about, we could do maybe a partial, like we do at Leland Hill Estates, or like we do Woodburyville Heights, because the roadway has not been.
I don't think there should be any objection to give this lot a complete certificate, because it's so old. And the condition is so cloudy that there's no saying whether or not it should be a partial, it should be a complete. If it's for this individual lot, it'd probably be a lot cleaner if you just gave it a complete, because my recollection is there are no wetlands on the lot.
Make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 7 Overlook Drive.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Done. Yeah, is that at your end?
Yeah, that original one must have been like 30 years ago. I don't remember.
If I remember right, that order went back to the
That's a
It's
full order.
303-17.
Yeah, 17, that's the late 70s. Mike Chizzy signed the order.
We have the police station file. So pass this down to that end over there, if you would, please. Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 19th, 2017, at 7:05 at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. The purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation by Jim Smith, Town of Sutton, Mass. The project consists of new construction of the Sutton Police Station, parking lot, sidewalk, berms and curbing, drainage structures, install mechanical equipment, oil water separator, holding tank, guardrail, fence, fire system, water lines, and associate grading and landscaping on map 30, parcels 38, on 489 Central Turnpike, Sutton, Mass.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Arthur Allen from Ecotech Incorporated. With me is Shelley Hulkren from JH Engineering here tonight. Again, we're here for the notice of intent for the new police station, 49 Central Turnpike, to be located at the former Blue Jay Restaurant site. Most of you folks are probably familiar with that location.
Just a second. Just as a matter of disclosure, I hire JH Engineering to do some of my work.
Okay.
Anybody thinks it's an issue, step
It's a
aside.
septic design.
Yeah, I gotcha.
All right.
Understood.
Yep.
Disclosure made. Thank you.
Yep.
As a representative of Ecotech and the applicant, I delineated the wetlands on this property, I think, actually 3 times over the years. Actually, the old restaurant owner had me in for lunch one time. So I go back a ways on this property when they were doing the septic system, which is still, repair septic, which is still in place. But that will be removed, the repair septic, all of the existing impervious, the foundation and slab for the old restaurant is still there. So basically, this is a redevelopment project of a site that essentially is essentially fully built out into the buffers, basically, essentially built out into up to the edge of the wetland. The wetland consists of a stream that originates just as groundwater seepage up here by Central Turnpike and then flows down along this side of the site. It's an intermittent stream. It actually picks up a substantial amount of drainage down in here from a culvert that comes across the site and then continues down off the site. That's the wetland resource area on the site. I know I've been out with Brandon and Joyce earlier in the year.
April, May?
Yeah, when we looked at the resource area boundaries and had some discussions out there, both about kind of site conditions, and then we also took a peek within the stream. There's an area where I had noticed since the last time I'd been on the site that there had been some floodwaters coming out into this lawn area down below here. And when I looked at the stream, I realized that there was blockage in the stream that was forcing water out into the site. And I looked a little further and realized that there is actually a former stream crossing in there. There's an old culvert that's all blocked up, and it's pushing the water out of the stream channel and out into the lawn area in here. That's actually part of the mitigation we're proposing. Shelley just asked me to, through Brandon, to prepare the impact avoidance, minimization, and mitigation narrative for you folks.
I have it.
You've got it, thank you. There's a copy for you, Wanda. Which I've done, basically just discussing the fact that, the site is previously developed, it's suited for the use of the police station by the town, it's in a good location, and my understanding it's the best available site for the police station, for the new police station in town. Again, the site's built out basically to the limits. One thing that Brandon brought up was the question of tree removal. I had been under the understanding that no trees are going to be removed on this site, but when Shelley put the tree line on today, there's a small chunk right in here within the tree line, and then there's a row of existing pines that were planted down in here that are going to be removed and replaced. They haven't located the actual trees. I mean, I'd actually be surprised if any of these were over 5 inches, but they haven't actually located them yet. Most of that's all second growth along the perimeter there. But that being said, I mean, they are, these are all proposed tree plantings all around the site. The site, as you probably know, is denuded at this point, except for grass. And so there will be a substantial landscape planting across the site, which I'm sure will, when we do look at the tree sizes, that should adequately mitigate for any tree removal on the site. Also for mitigation, the existing site, again, with all the impervious, there'll be a slight reduction in impervious area for the site in the post-development. Slight, but still a reduction. There was also no stormwater treatment at all for the existing site. They're proposing, as part of redevelopment, to put in deep catch basins, which will be routed through a storm scepter and then outlet through a riprap swale. So there'll be water quality treatment. So that's another aspect of mitigation. The third aspect would be we propose to remove and daylight the stream in that former crossing that's there with the blocked culvert. So there's a protocol on the utility plan that I wrote for removal of the stream and restoration of the channel, and that section is shown on the utility plan where that's going to be removed. Brandon also mentioned invasives removal, and there is quite a good bit of multiflora rose coming in along this edge of the site. We were getting scratched up by it when we were trying to look at the culvert, I think. So we've proposed a combination of removing any of the multiflora rose, by just full root removal, digging it out where it's within the limits of grading, and then where it's outside of the limits of grading, we'll do cut and treat on the multiflora rose to control it. So that would be the primary issue, invasive species. So that's basically the list of mitigation that we're proposing in a quick summary of the project. I know Shelley knows more about the engineering aspects. If you have any detailed questions about that end of it, she's here to answer anything like that. So.
Further out is the outline of the property limit.
Yes. Yep.
Out here.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
correct. Yep.
Yeah, that's all undeveloped wooded land. And I think, formerly the crossing went over there, and there was probably some kind of agricultural use or something. But
Probably fields over there long ago, and they just use that to get across.
yeah, it certainly hasn't been maintained.
No. Not in my lifetime.
I want to ask, Shelley, do you want to speak your piece on anything?
No, I think from an environmental standpoint, I think that Art covered everything. The only thing that I would say is, as far as impacts, the building is pushed right up to the front setback line right here. We had originally had it at rotation, which could have allowed us to get a little bit further away from the resource area. But what happened was this entrance became too steep because this is a full walkout here. And so the more the parking kicked over that way, the steeper that grade became. So that kind of controlled the rotation of the building.
Okay, you're reading my mind.
Oh, okay, good. It's a talent.
The focus of my review has really been on the right side of the project area, the east side. That's where the wetlands are. That's the sensitive area, yeah, and I want to ask the question is, to Art, how close does the limit of disturbance get to the wetlands? Besides your proposal to take out that crossing.
Right, yeah, I mean, the closest point is the grading is right up against flag 15, so.
Right up against.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
How far away is the actual drive? Like another 5-10 feet?
That's 2 to 1, 5 feet,
Yeah.
5 feet, yeah.
Just to go back to our impact avoidance and minimization thought process. What was the thought process with the requirement that they have a wraparound drive as opposed to having just a standalone parking lot up on Central Turnpike and a standalone parking lot down by Putnam Hill Road? And then, you know, why do you need that connection? What's the necessity for it?
Well, twofold, or maybe even morefold. The Sally Port, which is a lot of people aren't familiar with that term, but that's the drive-through prisoner. They take them not into custody, but they remove them from the vehicles there in a secure place, and those are drive-through. So you could wrap back around, but as a matter of traffic flow, that became a reason to have that easterly drive. Secondly, the police force is considering Central Turnpike to be the main entrance, and Putnam Hill Road is a authorized entrance only, so authorized personnel only. So in order, I guess, to expeditiously, I guess, get to any sort of calls, it just makes sense to have those two curb cuts and be able to take the cruisers from the back and go out either to either road.
So to put it on the record, you're saying that the need for that drive that wraps around is safety, mostly safety related?
It's safety, and it's something that most fire departments also look for on commercial buildings.
But this is just a standalone police station?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So we have the Sally Port that is necessary to get the prisoners in and out, or arrestees rather.
Yeah.
And also for expediency to get to and from calls, I imagine?
Mm-hmm. Without having to go through, enter the intersection.
Okay. And according to your calculations and opinions, was there any way to reasonably shift things any further away? You just explained the situation with the rotation of the building and
Yep.
configuration of the building, if necessary, and you have it right up to the buildable,
Setback.
Yeah, the setback.
Yep.
Were there any efforts made to get a variance to that?
There were not, at this point. As it was, the town altered the layout line of Putnam Hill Road, the county layout, the state layout, which allowed a portion of the existing layout to be pushed further into the intersection, and so that in the radius there is a new property line, so that gave us extra room to be able to push the building closer to the intersection. And then around the back, where you speak, we have to maintain certain sight distances going around the corner, especially with police vehicles, and then the driveway has to be 24 feet wide for two vehicle passage.
And what regulation is that? Where does that come
Planning.
from? It comes from planning.
Planning.
Minimum 24 feet
Minimum
wide. Is
24.
that for safety purposes?
Yes, yes.
And otherwise, with the exception of that little section of woods there that you have to go through, the rest of the site is already denuded? Either, the foundation, parking lot, or grassed area?
Correct.
And that's a tree line that I took off the aerials, the Mass GIS, or Google Earth, one of those. So that's the canopy. I don't know, again, like Art said, if that's an actual tree, or if that's just the floor.
What leans over the
Yeah.
grassy area,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's your opinion this is the highest and best layout you can achieve, given the site restraints?
Yes, we went through several iterations
Okay.
to get to this.
Can you talk a little bit more about the issue with the stream and what's going on with this crossing of the culvert and how it may be affecting the flow?
You mean the blocked culvert?
Block culvert,
Yeah, so do you have the utility plan? Charlie?
That has a protocol on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can point out the actual location.
It's on that plan.
So the culvert is located right here. This is an existing conditions plan. So it shows the existing parking and the slab for the former restaurant. So the block culvert is right here, shown on the plan. And right now, the flow comes down, it's below this outfall from the intersection. So you get some pretty strong flow, storms coming out right above the block culvert. It hits that blockage and it pushes flooding out into the lawn down here. You can see that when we were out there, the grass was flattened down. And you can see where during the storm events it flows out into this part of the side, which is upland currently. And then the culvert protocol, I have 9 points here. We'll notify the commission 48 hours prior to construction. We'll work only during extended dry period with no flow in the stream, so we'll only do the work when the stream is dry. We'll use a temporary check dam upstream, and we'll have provisions for bypass pumping in place in the event of a storm event, in the event of post construction. We'll remove the debris from over and around the existing culvert. We'll excavate, remove the culvert, shape the channel. We'll match the profile up and downstream of the existing channel above and below the culvert. And we'll restore the banks. We'll use rounded gravel and cobble, basically just a river rock back in there. And then we'll install 12-inch Sequoia fiber logs to reestablish the bank of the channel on both sides to stabilize it. And then we'll let them seed and straw mulch any disturbed areas that we use for access or work around the culvert area, and then we remove the check dam, open it up, and
So this is part of a two-part mitigation proposal for the unavoidable impacts to the AWRA, and also because it's going to be very close.
Yep.
The commission's policy over the years has been to try to keep new permanent alteration, even if it's in an area that's already worn and denuded, at least 25 feet away. And the commission has been pretty consistent about that. That said, there is no bylaw or regulation that prevents anyone from going into that area if the circumstances are right. If they can prove that there were absolutely no other alternatives and its proposal is necessary to the commission's satisfaction, and that the mitigation proposed is adequate enough to offset those permanent impacts.
Sure.
So, when you and Shelley, you discussed why you think that this is the highest and best layout. You discussed the proposed mitigation. So with that, I'll turn to the commission. I hope you've been taking it in, because this is going to be one of those situations where the commission could possibly allow disturbance closer than 25 feet, which generally isn't done. So I want to make sure that the commission is comfortable that there was no other design that could have been done, that it's necessary, and that you're comfortable with mitigation. And that's the general overarching theme. You can also talk about specific design aspects, which I'm sure Bob will come up with. But as far as complying with disturbance and mitigation offsets in regards to the bylaw, that's how I see it.
Being an intermittent stream,
Yeah.
Right.
could we move it back? Just not a practical thing to do, not allowed.
No, that would only apply to riverfront area, but even so, let's get back to a question that I have regarding site redevelopment. So, Shelley, I think Art said earlier that this site qualifies for redevelopment, quote unquote, under the stormwater rules. Can you explain to the audience and to the commission what redevelopment means, as opposed to having to comply with the so-called full boat stormwater requirements?
Yeah, sure. So this was a previously developed site, previously disturbed, and under the Stormwater Management Act, that then qualifies as redevelopment. In that case, a proponent is required to comply to the maximum extent feasible with the stormwater standards and with any type of mitigation. And on this site, this particular site, between the deep sump catch basins, and they'll also have hoods, and the storm scepter, we fully meet water quality. It is an overall slight decrease in site impervious area. And then the other standards have not been fully met as required because it is redevelopment. So some of those would be infiltration and recharge. It's not a site that's particularly suited for any type of recharge, given the high water table. And the other standards, but this is a best management practice, or BMP, so it's called, approach to this site being developed.
Plus the fact, I mean, it would be difficult to do any kind of infiltration with we're replacing the septic system too.
Right,
so-
yes, yes.
So that would be another restriction.
So you say this high water table?
Uh,
Can you explain
Sure.
how did you find out? Did you do test pits and where?
We used the records that were on file with the Board of Health, previous testing that was done in 2007
For septic?
for septic,
Okay.
for septic, 2007, and then again in 2010. And the water table was fairly shallow, I think.
Within 2 feet?
No, I don't believe so. I'm just not recollecting off the top of my head here.
Yeah, don't kill yourself.
Okay, now you have me curious.
Okay.
I don't have that sheet. Gotta figure it out. It's right here.
I stole it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go ahead. It's gonna take me a minute to find it.
Okay.
The answer to my question is, could it be moved, the stream,
Could the stream be moved?
the intermittent stream?
That would be very difficult.
The short answer is no.
The short answer is no.
Okay.
Is anything impossible? No, but for this, to move this, To move the stream or to move a wetland because it's in the way of your development is something that DEP does not allow you to do.
Yep.
I'll
That's
give
the
you an
answer.
example. I once worked on a project in Westport where the town had a 100-foot setback from the wetland to the leach field. And this particular site didn't quite have enough room. So the applicant proposed to fill in a section of wetland and just replace it somewhere else. And upon appeal, DEP said, no, you can't do that.
Can't do that.
So I think it would apply in this situation as well. But I think that the mitigation that they're proposing, this historic crossing and the problems it is causing is a very good one, along with the invasive species eradication. But again, I suggest that you have some vigorous discussion about that.
The stormwater improvements and a pretty robust replanting of the site too are also improvements.
Lighting. What kind of lighting? I mean, we're talking about trying to have, in regards to being so close to the wetland, and this has been done before, 58 Main Street. There was some townhouses proposed that to date haven't been constructed, but one of the conditions associated with lighting is that you have lighting that is what we call dark sky compliant and faces down and gets the intended area as opposed to having the light spread out into the forest. So what kind of lighting are you proposing?
The architect's electrical engineer is proposing, I believe it's LED lights, lampposts, and a photometric plan was done, and it's 0 lumens at every property line. So there's no spillover offset.
Or you say property line, the eastern property line is well into the woods.
Well, I'm sorry, yeah, okay.
Oh, right there?
Correct. So as where the lamp posts are, and then you do the photometric analysis, there's no spillover. It's 0.
Outside of the developed area?
Yeah, outside
is
of
it?
the developed area.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I could talk about lighting from the vehicles and any flashing lights and whatnot, which can be disturbing to wildlife, but that's something we generally have never, commissions never talked about or had a concern about. This is kind of a unique situation where you might have the cruiser lights going off in the parking lot or leave coming and going. It's usually just, regular cars going in and out. Does the commission have any concerns about flashing lighting going into the woods? No.
I don't think there's a whole lot of wildlife value between there and the house next door, actually. I had a question about snow removal. What are you going to do with the snow?
That's one of the questions I had too. There is a plan with snow storage.
Art, you talked about water coming across the site. Is that sheet drainage that goes into that? Or how does that get into the?
Well, all of the catch basins up in this whole intersection, I think some of them must be intercepting groundwater too, because there's pretty much of a constant flow through this culvert
existing
into
culvert?
the stream, yeah.
And where's that come out of?
So that comes out just above, so this is 14, 16. So this comes out right about here, Yep.
There's some kind of water quality, water treatment in that.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually taken all the catch basins from up in the public street in the intersection, so it's just piped through this.
Right, and
So
we've
there's
taken,
no
we've
water
taken,
treatment there?
no, because it originally went there and we just kept it going there. We did not tie it into our drainage network.
It's probably, I don't think they have an actual easement, it's probably a prescriptive easement.
Yeah,
I mean, we
it's probably been there for
can't
who
alter
knows how
that,
long.
it's,
Yeah.
it's the public street drain outflow. I mean, the water I've seen coming out of there is good quality. It just responds pretty quickly to the flood.
I'm looking for some help getting you closer than 25 feet
Yeah.
that we haven't done before.
Yep, yep.
What about sweeping the parking lot and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the O&M plan. I can let you guys look at the snow storage areas while I'm going for the O&M, if you don't mind. I don't want to turn on them.
Pin it up.
Yeah, why don't you fill that,
Okay.
that's all right.
Yeah,
One of my recommended, standard recommended conditions, whenever there's an O&M plan, have it attached to the order of conditions included as a condition. Jeff Walsh sent me his review, which they just sent out yesterday.
yes.
Didn't look like he had any substantial concerns, you know, some of the usual nitpicky engineering type,
Yeah, a
issues.
little labeling, yeah.
But otherwise, it didn't look like he had any major stuff, but what's your status with planning right now?
We are on for the 24th. That will be that's a continuance. So we'll make all of those required and recommended plan revisions for the site plan review prior to that meeting. Yeah.
The snow storage plan is up there. Looks like we've got it here, here.
Right.
Looks like they've got a number of vegetated areas around the perimeters where they're proposing snow storage.
And those can be relocated as feasible.
It's not the water itself, it's the salt and the sand. And that one up top by Central Turnpike looks like it's, you know, it's right next to the wetland and upgrade of the wetland. And I'm concerned about salt, yeah, right there, the potential for salt and the sand washing into the wetland and eventually the stream. So what chances do you think of that happens?
That's this one he's concerned
That
about.
one?
Well, then the one down at the bottom, just on the one up top.
Part of the issue is that we have a generator pad here that will likely have bollards around it.
Yeah.
So there's not much of an opportunity to push the snow there. The proposed septic system is here. We don't want to put it on top of the septic system.
Yeah.
There's a short retaining wall there. There's a propane tank here that will have a riser and cover 12 inches above grade there. You know, this is pinned right up against the wetland. We have a guardrail here, so there can't be any snow storage here. Sidewalk here, which we may or may not eliminate this based on planning comments. If that's the case, then we could take some of this snow and utilize this area here.
Okay.
This one we could eliminate.
Looks like it's gonna be easier for him to push off here, but
Yeah,
whether that's,
I'm concerned, it's the salt and the sand, long-term. And if you're pushing it towards the wetland, then it's gonna melt, and the wetland's immediately downhill,
Mhm.
then that's the concern.
okay. We could always post signs
The other
there.
concern is that 2/3 of the snow storage areas are landscape areas. So it's tough to stack the snow around these beautiful trees that Art says they're putting up as mitigation and flowers and shit. And we're burying it with snow and salt and stuff in the wintertime. So, I mean, they're not coordinated on the drawings between landscaping and snow storage at all.
They actually are. I'm sorry. I did overlay the landscape plan
The
with,
upper corner there, the 3 trees up there, I don't know what happens on that. The entrance road coming in. you
right,
got-
the trees are, the stump, what's it called, trunk of the tree is behind where I've shown the snow storage.
Does that mean that we've only got approximately 6 feet
Yeah.
of snow storage?
Well, it's storage slash plow what's coming off the driveway. So a little berm of snow. We're not talking about taking a loader and hauling the snow to that location and then dumping it there.
Depends on the winter.
That's what,
Okay.
typically snow storage is,
Yeah, yeah.
is that, just that, that's
Yeah.
where the snow is collected and disposed of.
Mhm.
I'm just saying it appears that
Yeah, but we did coordinate between the landscaping plan.
So the stone storage is stated there is only 2 or 3 feet deep in most cases.
Well, you could have a significant amount of snow here and a significant amount of snow stored here that actually could be, piled up, snow piles. This is just coming off the driveway. This is, they might try to push everything into this
The
location.
one down at the bottom may interfere with sight view coming out of the driveway.
It potentially could,
Pile of snow there.
yeah, we just wanted to make sure that we showed enough areas that was reasonable.
And the other side, of course, would interfere potentially if they in fact use that for snow storage.
Which side am
Well,
I?
both sides of the driveway, you've got snow storage, don't you?
Right here?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you put a pile there, it's a little tough to go out into traffic, particularly in an emergency. And likewise up going on to Central Turnpike.
Yeah, I think there's enough sight distance there on this corner for that, but we could pull this area back, certainly.
I mean, this to be maintained by the DPW, so I mean, if they have a problem, they're just gonna be pulling the snow out of this
Yeah.
site, I would imagine.
If we had a, like we did in
Well,
2015.
I don't disagree with you unless you got a drawing that says this is where you could store your snow.
Yeah.
Now there's no reason to take it out, we just keep putting extra piles there, right?
And there's a problem with sight lines right on here at this corner.
Right, right.
I believe we can provide a general note that says that excess snow shall be removed from the site.
Is that in your O&M plan? or-
Typically, we put it right on the plan. I'm missing one sheet of this plan.
There's a utilities,
Long grass.
utilities are up here, is that?
Is it?
Grass, 3 or 4
On
inches.
demo and erosion, it might be on demo and erosion on the general notes. No? General notes?
It's not in your O&M.
Yeah. I give that to Joyce.
Dean's got it now.
What's that? Okay.
Okay, so again, the commission's policy, the bylaw has been to try to keep new disturbance as far away from wetlands as possible, a minimum of 25 feet, which the whole idea is the further away you are from the wetland, the better you protect the public interests associated with it, protection of water quality, water quantity, flooding, storm damage prevention, and wildlife habitat, because when you keep a vegetated buffer between the permanent disturbance and the wetland, the trees and the vegetation and the soils do the job all it's on its own. So it's just a matter, in order to comply with the bylaw, and besides the technical aspects of the engineering, which Graves Engineering has been taken care of and doesn't look like they have any big concerns. But to be in compliance with the bylaw, and especially the commission's policy, the commission should feel comfortable that any and all precautions have been made to pull permanent disturbance away from the wetland as much as possible. And if they can't stay 25 feet away, that you're comfortable with the justification, and that you're also comfortable with the level of mitigation proposed. That's the big question, because This is gonna be a deviation from the norm.
Plus, again, it's a previously developed site. I know you like to increase the protection, but
Art, just a question on the
Yeah.
previously developed site. What's the longevity of that? In other words, if this site was developed 50 years ago, would it still apply? Can you use the same excuse that if this restaurant was up 50 years ago and it burned down, can you say it's still a previously developed site, so therefore we don't have to do all the other things? Or is it 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? What is the window there that you can use that as a crutch to alter the design? And
right, it's not
get
so
around
much
things?
of a length of time that we look at, it's the site condition. So, I mean, this site's been maintained in a disturbed condition. I mean, all the impervious area is still there. The lawn areas have been continued to be mowed. So it's it's been maintained in a disturbed condition. If the site had been let go and it had grown up to trees and, gone back to a natural condition, if all the impervious had been removed, then I would not be trying to invoke, redevelopment. We wouldn't be talking about stormwater redevelopment. But the site was developed and it remains in a developed state. So that's really, it's not so much a length of time. This site's been developed for whatever, 40 or 50 years.
More than that.
But yeah, but it remains in a developed state. That's kind of the guideline.
And with the exception of that little section of trees in the middle, I agree with that assessment.
The reason for having to drive up the eastern side is so as the cruisers can get out of there, or is it?
It's the main entrance.
In and out off Central
That's the
Turnpike.
main
Yes.
entrance for who?
The
I think
police,
you're talking
everybody.
about the wraparound on the east
It's,
side. of the
yeah,
building.
it is the main
Why couldn't they
entrance
come
for
in
the
on Putnam
public.
Mill Road?
She said that's only going to be for
Authorized vehicles. only.
authorized vehicles.
But
Yeah.
if we didn't have that piece going up behind the station, for lack of better terms, they'd be compliant. And
Or closer to being compliant.
much closer. And I don't see an overwhelming need to do it, that's just what I'm looking at here.
They'd still be within the 100-foot buffer zone,
Right, but they-
EWRA. They
they'd
would
be
still have to
outside.
do mitigation, but as it is right now, they're well within 25 foot. Like I said,
Yeah,
at some point, they're gonna be right next to it.
What we're struggling with is a 25-foot thing.
Right. It's just been a policy because within 25 feet, it's kind of hard to mitigate
I
once you get
understand.
that close. So, but again, there's no prohibition on it. It's just been pretty consistently maintained at 25 feet. I always knew there would come a day when a situation like this would come up, which is why there's nothing in the bylaw absolutely prohibiting work within 25 feet. But the commission just has to be comfortable with the need, the necessity, and the mitigation.
The avoidance thing, the questions you typically ask is, could the building be smaller? Could the building be in a different location? Could the building be on a different lot? You typically ask those questions and expect an answer for that. So, I mean, have those been answered in this? I don't know.
They are answered, so why don't I, seeing as that this is such a sensitive area, how about we go through them and Art can answer the questions? How's that sound? You ready, Art?
You're a lucky man, Art.
See how far I get.
Okay.
I mean, in terms of alternative locations and alternative layouts, it's my understanding the town went through a site selection process to arrive at this location. I mean, I can't speak to the specifics of that because I wasn't involved in it.
Wouldn't ask you to.
But, I mean, this, in terms of access, location and proximity to the busy parts of town, the center of town, to accessible roadways, I mean, this pre-developed site, this floated to the top through that process, that's my understanding. And Shelley's talked about, about different layouts. You said they've had three different building iterations, and they've also moved, you said the state moved the line here so they
Yes.
could shift everything closer to the intersection.
Yeah.
I believe we voted at that at town meeting, too.
Yes, correct.
So I mean, that's really the process that I understand that they went through to arrive at this, at this location and this design.
How about I go through the questions one by one so we can put it on the record? Okay. So, under the heading Impact Avoidance, the first question is whether or not the primary proposed activity is water dependent or whether it requires access to wetland resource areas and/or their adjacent upland resource areas as a central element of its primary purpose. For example, a dock or a pier. And I'll answer that one. The answer is no, obviously. Second question is whether there are any areas within the same property or other properties owned or controlled by the applicant that could be used to achieve the project purpose without altering the natural character of any wetland resource areas or their adjacent upland resource areas. So I'll let you answer that question.
So again, after what I understand was a lengthy townwide site selection process, the decision was made to redevelop this existing parcel. And as the area to be redeveloped on this site does not retain any of its natural character, I believe the parcel is well suited to the project purpose. Again, the keeping without altering the natural character, and that's not what we're proposing to do on this site.
With one adjustment regarding that area in the middle, which you got off the Google area.
Right.
Which area in the middle?
So where that tree line is.
Oh, right
goes
there,
from
yes,
that
yes. I thought you meant in the middle of the site, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Any questions on that, comments? Third question is whether or not there are any other properties reasonably available to, but not currently owned or controlled by the applicant that could be used to achieve the project purpose while avoiding wetland resource areas and/or their AWRA alterations. A property is reasonably available if, in whole or in part, it can be acquired without excessive cost, taking individual circumstances into account, or, in the case of property owned or controlled by the same entity, group or affiliated entities, or local, state, or federal government, that is the town in this case, may be obtained without excessive hardship. So what's your answer to that?
And again, as we've discussed, it's my understanding that other properties were considered but did not have the combination of location, access, and the previous development that makes this parcel the top pick.
Can you give any examples of those other properties?
Again, I wasn't
considered?
involved in that process whatsoever.
Shall
Yes, and I wish I could tell you what the specific address is, but it's also on Central Turnpike. There is, I guess as far as landmarks, there's a trail system with a small gravel parking area.
Oh, yeah.
Off Central Turnpike.
Yeah, right.
It's the Shaw Farm
Shaw Farm.
Okay.
off of Central Turnpike, and
That was
that's
evaluated,
where they want to put the DPW.
okay. And I was also not involved in the site selection process, so I cannot speak to that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that one? Okay. Fourth question. Whether alternative designs, layouts, or technologies could be used to avoid wetland resource areas or their AWRAs, or impacts to the stated public interest on subject property, or whether the project purpose could be achieved on other properties that are reasonably available and would avoid WRAs and or their AWRAs. So, could you have used different technologies? Could you have come up with a different layout? Or could you have just gone to a different property altogether in order to avoid permanent disturbance?
Again, I can't speak to the property, going to a different property, because our firm was not involved in that aspect of the process. Different layouts for the building were considered by the building committee. And this was the preferable building layout with between the space that it offered inside the building, the technology that it offered to get this police station up to what is now will be a modern facility. And so this was the preferred layout that offered both the town everything that they were looking for, or I shouldn't say everything, what they were looking for, preferably in a new police station, and the layout that worked best for this site with the Sally Port. I'm now working on my third police station design, and each one of them has had this wing off the back that has the Sally Port for discharge and loading of, I don't want to say prisoners, but
Arrestees.
Suspects.
Suspects. Yeah.
Okay, and it's becoming part of a modern police station, and what officers feel safe with, and what's safest for the public.
Questions, comments on that one?
Is it safe to say that
I'm sorry?
I said, is it safe to say that the topography of the existing site and the size of the existing site makes it very difficult to put a functioning building in as the building department wanted? I mean, I don't see where it is, you know, an ideal situation to have almost a 10-foot grade change coming down a driveway. And I don't know what scale the drawing is, so I can't tell you what the pitch is on the driveway, but I'm assuming it's a 5 or 6% pitch, which, you know, is not an ideal situation
Right.
coming down or going out in the back. And likewise, coming in on the, I'm talking about the police end of it, not the public end.
Yep.
But coming in from the other side, again, you've got a reasonably substantial drop in grade. It's not as steep, the slope is different, it's flatter slope. But is it fair to say that the size of the lot and the elevations on a given lot doesn't really present itself easily for this style building?
Well, I would definitely say that the difference in elevation, existing elevation, from Central Turnpike, 506, and this is 482 here, so that's 24 feet difference from Central Turnpike to the back of the
Yeah,
lot.
but we can't use the 482 only because the driveway entrance dictates on the lower side what you're.
Oh, yeah,
what you're
I
gonna be
guess I'm
doing,
just,
all
I guess
right?
I'm just saying that my point is that they wanted a two-story building with a full walkout on the back in order to get all of the offices and mechanical
But to
rooms
do that,
in.
you're going downhill in both directions, so that
Correct.
the driveway is in a hole, and the
Yeah,
lot-
that happens naturally anyway. Both these curb cuts are higher than where we have our walkout here.
Well, if you were to,
We did try to rotate the building this way, hold this point here at the layout, and twist the whole building that way, but that would just make this egress even steeper than it already is. And for
Unless
safety
you-
reasons,
unless you raise the elevation of the footprint of the building.
we could raise the footprint of the building, but it's already higher than Central Turnpike as we stand.
I don't know, I don't see
Yeah.
a floor grade here. What is a floor grade?
The finished floor is, the walkout is 492, I believe.
Well, that's, 492 is the Sally Port in the bottom.
Let me just see.
That's well below the road, plenty level. Your parking lot is 505, 50,
Yeah, 503,
506,
Uh,
507.
5045, no, 5065, I believe is
Which is,
which is the grade at the finished floor elevation, and 506 is the grade at Central Turnpike.
yeah, so it's 6 inches higher than Central Turnpike. I mean, if you actually made that
Even higher?
2 or 3 feet higher than Central Turnpike,
Yeah.
it wouldn't,
It'd be a good thing.
it'd be a
Well-
good thing, it wouldn't look like it's down a hole.
Correct.
And
Yep, yep.
by raising the grade there, you might be able to rotate the building a little bit and correct some of your other issues.
We'd still end up, we already have a wall along the
Yeah,
back.
the wall would have to be
Yeah,
2
the wall
feet
would have to
higher
be higher.
or 3 feet higher. but you'd be able to pull the wall in away from the brook a little bit further, possibly. A little more of a buffer zone. Just, we're
Yeah.
talking about alternatives
Yeah,
here
yeah,
that are
yeah.
reasonable alternatives. I don't feel the site presents itself to a good building layout, because personally, just that everything is going downhill. You got the road in the back is ridiculously steep.
Yeah.
For winter time, it's
Yes,
ridiculously
yep,
steep
yep.
and dangerous and everything else.
It's-
And even the one in the front doesn't do real well. What's that, probably a 4% grade?
That is, I believe that's, yeah, I think that's 4.5% right there.
And in the back, it has to
Yeah,
be
maybe it's
closer to
12.
10%.
Yep, that's at 10% down the side.
which
And I
is-
believe this over here is 7% on the Putnam Hill side.
So I mean,
7% on Putnam
It's
Hill
gotta
side,
be-
10% on the Central Turnpike side?
this is good.
Only next to the building. where
Yeah.
the-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with us conservation-wise,
Mm-hmm.
all right, so I
Well, it
shouldn't even
does.
talk about it.
It's trying to get away from the
But,
wetland.
you know, if we raised it, I think the whole project would turn out to be a little better fitting on the site, possibly. I don't think the site lends itself to the building as large as it is. It's in this tight site, but that's,
I think there'd be significant impacts along the wetland side. For instance, if this 50, let's just take the 500 grade. If that became, if we raised the building up by 2 feet, this becomes the 502. Now we have even that much more fill along this whole side here.
oh no, we appreciate the fact your
Yeah.
wall would have to be higher.
Yeah,
But by doing that, you might be able to rotate the building as you suggested earlier. And the reason we couldn't rotate the building was you were afraid of making the driveway coming in,
Right,
that's
too steep.
4.5% right now, too steep. But if we were to raise the grade of the whole thing, we'd be able to raise the grade of the parking or the sally port. And that in turn would reduce the slope coming in to that area a little bit, but it would
Yeah,
also improve that back road from a safety standpoint, but also what we're looking for is to try to pull that wall a little bit further away from the stream.
You could also take the landscaping and push it over and have the driveway closer to the building, and that would help too.
Got longer driveway, makes less pitch.
it's, we can look at it. I don't think it's that cut and dry.
Never
I'd have
is.
to regrade the site and see what the difference in impacts is.
You know, you're just talking about 10% down the east side and 7% down the driveway to Putnam Hill Road.
Mhm.
It makes me think that you're gonna have to put a lot of sand and road salt as well, which is gonna, you know, just storing it where you say it is next to the wetland, could end up being significant. And again, I agree with Joyce's assessment that the wetland on site isn't the greatest wetland that we've
Yeah.
ever seen, but this is connected to wetland that's much more extensive downhill.
The golf
And-
course.
Yeah, it's a tributary to Dark Brook. So, and that goes all the way down through, what's the pond system there?
Yeah,
Come on. Yes, pond, you know,
Yeah.
recreational pond.
yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, you were going through this thing.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go
Is that
ahead.
the last question you had?
Oh, no, we still have some more. Okay. And I alluded to this one earlier. Whether the applicant has made any attempts, and if so, what they were, to avoid alterations to wetland resource areas in their AWRAs by overcoming or removing constraints imposed by zoning, infrastructure, parcel size, or the like. So we talked about zoning a little bit earlier, so we're talking about zoning, we're talking about
Possible variance.
infrastructure size, parcel size, and the like. You know, so you don't want to put, I don't want to use that analogy, just a too big building on too small of a lot. So you said you hadn't gone to zoning, asked for any kind of variance to the front side yard setbacks. You gave some rationale for that earlier. Would you like to restate it, or would you like to reconsider?
Based on discussions with Jen Hadrick. I don't, we asked for a lot of waivers, as it is through site plan approval process, parking within the setbacks, some waivers from landscape requirements within the parking areas. There were a whole handful of waivers that we had already asked for, in addition to requesting that the layout line be moved to give us that extra room to push the building further north and west. And I don't, it was my feeling that by moving the layout line and then going in and asking for a variance for the setback, kind of would have been like kicking ourselves in the teeth, like, why didn't you just create the layout line in a different location? So I don't think it's reasonable to ask that we ask for a building setback variance on a newly constructed building. I don't think there's a likelihood that would go through.
But you think it's reasonable to ask us to build right on the wetland line?
It was the alternative. It was the best alternative for the site as it went through the design process.
See, our problem is that every engineer that brings a plan to us tells us the same thing. You know, the house has to be this big, we've got no place else to put it, and so forth and so on. So once we
I don't think a variance
say
would be
fine,
reasonable, because it's just wood there.
then it's fine forever. It's hard to come there. It's hard to get there without, and then save face on the whole process.
It always seems like it's easier to get some kind of variance from conservation than it is from planning, so.
How far along is the building plans?
The building plans are final. This
That's
is
too bad,
this is
isn't
going
it?
out the bid next week.
That's too bad, isn't it? Well, they could have altered the building plans to fit the site a little bit better, such as the Sally Port and stuff could have been moved up. The building might have been a little squarer or wider and eliminated part of that, you know, to make the whole thing, the building fit, I come back to the fact, the building does not fit the lot. The lot's too damn small for the building. But we seem to be, it's going out to bid next week, I don't even, you know.
Shelley, is the fact that Putnam Hill Road in this area is a state road have an impact on any of the design and setbacks?
No.
All right. Last question under impact avoidance. Whether the feasible alternatives that would not alter the natural character of any dwelling resource area or AWRA on subject property or on property that is reasonably available, if incorporated into the proposed project, would adversely affect the stated public interests of the bylaw. All right.
So again, we're not altering any wetland resource areas, and I keep going back to the fact that this is a previously developed site. I mean, we're not, you know, we're not asking to disturb existing undisturbed buffers. I wouldn't be making that request in front of this commission.
Well, with the exception of that little bump out.
Yeah, where the canopy overhangs.
And that, right, and maybe go back and see whether or not that's just an overhang or if it's actual trees in there.
Yeah, I took a note on that. I mean, we haven't, like I say, they haven't, that wasn't located on the ground, so it's something that would have to be done.
So, Art, just for my sake, Art, are we saying that the existing pavement and building footprint that's out there now, even though the building's gone, been demolished and everything else, but that the asphalt, which I call the disturbed area,
Right.
all right, that is no larger than what we're seeing on this drawing?
So so we'll call that the impervious surface. The impervious surface existing is greater than what they're putting back in there. So they're putting back less impervious area.
I believe you, because I'm not doing the math, I'm just looking at the drawing, and it doesn't appear, looking at the drawing, would be the case, but that's, I haven't done the math.
I have to rely on the PE, and that's what the PE.
Yeah, I kind
tells me.
of thought the same thing, because it looks like there's a lot more pavement than there is now, but I'm not an engineer.
Well, there's also a lot of green space.
Right, and I guess when you add all that up, so
Right.
you're saying,
That's,
Oh, you had.
that's my understanding.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
you first.
No, I just want to go back to a question I think Dan asked, that we're redoing the drainage that's being collected from the four corners and running it through the site and running it out. Is that correct?
No, no.
That's our new pipe? or
There's an
that's-
existing catch basin here. I don't know
Yeah.
which side to stand on. There's an existing catch basin here that goes to an existing drain manhole here that's, doesn't even have a cover, it has a rock over it. And then it discharges down, actually on this plan.
So,
Catch basin there, double catch basin there. There's a series of catch basins over here. Ends up in a drain manhole here, discharges near wet flag 15. We are replacing this drain manhole and just rerouting it to another manhole. We're gonna reroute it to another manhole here, manhole, and discharge in the same location. So apples to apples.
yeah, but not, no, speaking strictly as conservation,
Yeah,
and not knowing what kind of catch basins we've got out there in the road,
yeah,
everything else,
yeah.
I think we would be negligent if we didn't insist that there be a water quality structure put on that outfall to protect the wetlands from those catch basins up in the intersection, which we don't even know if they got sumps on them, don't know if they got hoods in them, don't know nothing about them. So, I mean, seeing as how we're rebuilding that portion of the discharge, I just feel from a conservation standpoint,
Yeah.
we'd be negligent in not insisting that there be a water quality structure.
We did replace this manhole here with a storm scepter prior to discharge.
I think
To
that we,
treat that.
I think we should.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that? Now we head into the impact minimization section. There are 4 questions that are asked.
Brandon, I think that we've taken a lot of time on this. There are other people that are way behind. We're gonna have to come back and convince us that we've got to do something with this 25-foot setback, or why we just absolutely can't. I don't think you're prepared to do it tonight.
We've got a number of notes, yeah.
You'd probably like to ask for a continuance for the next meeting.
Yes, please, thank you.
Please.
And
Anything else, Bob, before we
Oh,
go?
no, just one last thing. I didn't know whether or not these files, drawings have been prepared electronically in PDF form, and if they have, could they be disseminated to the members of the commission so they have an opportunity to review it before the next meeting?
Yep.
Anybody in the general public that wants to comment before we release these poor people? Hearing none?
Make a motion to continue to
August 2nd at 8:05.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Unless you want these back, shall we?
Yeah, please.
Shelley, was the scale noted on the drawings?
Yes, 20.
I couldn't find it, that's all.
Which sheet were you on?
I was on, looking at all the
He'll
sheets.
believe you.
I believe you.
Oh, yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
was looking at all the sheets.
Yeah, that's okay. Oh, that's because my boss printed these,
Oh,
and he doesn't
okay.
know how to plot.
Oh, all right.
So you see how this whole thing right here is cut off?
Yeah.
It was right there. Sorry.
Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 19, 2017, at 7:30 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Oxford Road. Purposes hearing is to review notice of intent for the Conservation Commission by Dean Smith, Borrego Solar Systems in Lowell, Mass. Project consists of a 1.98 megawatt ground-mounted solar photovoltaic energy generating system on map 33, parcels 10 on 263 Purgatory Road, Sutton, Mass. Welcome.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Dean Smith from Borrego Solar. I'm the civil engineer for the project. As you mentioned, the project's located off of Purgatory Road. This is Route 146 here. The heavy pink line here is the subject parcel where the property is located. This is just showing the general layout of the solar array system, and then we have a proposed drive that will come out and access off of Purgatory Road.
Could you speak a little louder? I don't know that this can pick you up.
Sure, I'm a little bit of a low talker. I apologize. So this project is going to be built for National Grid, so it'll be a public utility project. The solar array itself is about 2 megawatts in size. The area taken up by the solar arrays inside the fence is approximately 9 acres. The total area that would be cleared for the construction is 15.3 acres. And I'll show you the site plan in a second, but there is a gas line easement that bisects the property. So they have some pretty restrictive conditions in their right-of-way that's been written for that. And the area that's west of that towards the highway is largely taken up by wetland resource areas. So all of our system is located on the east side of that, since we're not going to be able to get rights to cross it, to change grades, to excavate in that area. The property owners also own these properties that are adjacent. This side of the property is also the town line. So our project is in Sutton. A portion of our proposed entrance driveway is actually in Northbridge. Some of the wetlands also extend across the town line, so we've also filed a notice of intent with Northbridge as well for those areas down there. We have made every effort that we can to stay at least 50 feet away from the flagged wetland areas. I think we encroach on that with some tree cutting in some areas, but all of the development is 50 feet or more outside of the resource areas. This dimension here, this 566, is the approximate distance to the nearest residence from our solar modules, and this 1065 is the approximate distance to a residence from our equipment area. The solar modules themselves don't make any noise. There aren't any noxious fumes or anything. They're very non-intrusive. There is some noise at the equipment area. Some of the equipment there is about like this air conditioner here. It's about on that level. So once you get 150 to 175 feet away, there isn't anything above ambient sound for that. Around our solar array system will be, it'll all be enclosed with a security fence that's locked at all times. There is only a single lighting fixture at that equipment pad area. It's on a pole that's approximately 9 feet tall. It's motion activated. It's shielded and directed downward so that it only illuminates the equipment area itself. There really is very little occasion that we would be on site after dark anyway. The system only operates during the daylight hours as it's a solar generating facility. So to look a little closer at the layout, these dark areas are the wetlands that have been flagged in the field. Your consultant did request that he wants to walk it with our consultant and verify all the lines. There may be some adjustments that are required as they discuss where those are located. That's not planned to happen until next week. So I'm going to try and keep it very brief for you tonight because we're probably going to need to be continued to a future date as well. I think I've given you most of the basics of the system itself. One thing that I didn't mention is that the town of Sutton recently made a map amendment to add a solar overlay area, which is almost specific to this project. So it's kind of special in that regard in terms of the location and the use. So I'm open to answer any questions that you'd like to ask.
Brandon?
Before we go further in conservation, where does this project stand with planning board?
We have been to one hearing so far. We're revising plans for resubmittal based on peer review comments and some comments from the planner. There also were some concerns raised by the town of Northbridge that our legal counsel is working on. So we're only partially through the planning board process. But the overlay district itself permits this with just a site plan review. So that's what we're going through. There's no special permit or any other zoning action required for this.
What legal issues is it with the town of Northbridge?
Well, part of it is a question about exactly what kind of applications we need to make to them, as only the access driveway and our electrical interconnection is located in the town of Northbridge. So the facility itself, all of the solar arrays are located on the subject parcel that's in the town of Sutton. So there are some discussions about whether we need to go to the planning board, whether it's just a building permit application, some questions about frontage, those types of things. So we may actually be required to combine some of these parcels to provide for the frontage. It's all under common ownership by the mandamentors. So those are all things that can be accomplished. We just haven't quite gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
I was at the planning board meeting. Initially, there was a bigger area that was going to be proposed on the map, and it went up towards Smith Road, and I was in a butter. And so I went to the hearing and listened to the spiel, and specifically asked at the end of the meeting, are there any wetlands on the property? And they said, oh, no, there's no wetlands. So I'm very surprised. The person that was at the planning board meeting, I specifically asked, I can't tell you who it was, but the two gentlemen that were presenting it,
During the map
at the
amendment?
end of the meeting, I specifically asked if there were wetlands, because I was on conservation, and they said no. So I'm very surprised to see you here.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure when these were flagged. I imagine that they had some awareness that there were wetlands on this property. There are very few that extend over in this area. The original layouts came up much closer to the property line here, but there are some wetland areas that we pulled out of to avoid impacts in that area.
Okay. Are you aware that DEP, when issuing their file number, had some comments themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
And I have it up on the screen, what their comments were. And they state that the BBW line associated with the E-Series should be continued to the south until it terminates at Purgatory Road. But that's mostly the town of Northbridge.
It is affecting mostly this area here. If these were flagged further, it doesn't really affect our layout. So it's mostly concerning the town of Northbridge. But I've already asked our consultants to go out and flag further to the south over them there.
Then they have some engineering questions about detention basins and things, which I presume that Graves Engineering is on top of.
Yeah, those have been revised based on those questions, and they look very different than what they did in the original submittal. So we'll have those for this commission also when we have our continued hearing. We'll file those when they're all complete.
So you still got some distance to go with planning board, so.
Yes.
Continuing now is really not going to slow anything down, and I
No.
think it's going to be very important that I get out there with the wetland delineation consultant to look over the wetland delineation, because I have some significant commentary on the accuracy of the line. And I saw that it was delineated by New England Environmental, which is now a subsidiary of a company called SWCA, which I wasn't aware of that. Is it, because the people, I know, when I started my career, I was an intern at that company. The owner, the guy's named Mickey Marcus.
Yes.
Very high quality person in general. Has quality people working for him. So I was kind of surprised that I would have such large concerns about the accuracy of the line. But I give my little pointer. I can point out the area. So see how you get the main body right here? It comes up to this little terminus, and then right here it comes up to this little bulb right here. I followed this up, and I followed the wetland right up into the main body of the solar area, and then it came back down into here. And I'm not convinced that there's a separation between this little bulb and this little bulb right here.
Okay.
So if I'm right, and I think I am, there's going to be a significant area of wetland right in the body of the solar panels, which may make you completely rethink this project from...
I haven't walked the entire site, and I'm not a biologist, so it'd be hard for me to comment on that. Although this portion of the site is rather steep, so I'm not sure what would necessarily...
There is a slope. It all slopes
Brandon,
this way.
you'll deal with that in the field?
We'll do it in the field.
Yes,
Moving
I'm
right
sure
along.
Happy to do some
I have a question, Mr. Teff.
One short question. Brendan, is there any critter concerns?
Critter concerns? Well, yeah, if we get the wetland issues hashed out and they continue to go forward, it's very good woodland habitat, very little in the way of invasive species. So they're going to be within the 100-foot AWRA. Question is, what mitigation could they do? And we don't want to get into a situation like we had on Manchog Road where they're proposing mitigation in the forest because it's redundant. And it's, with the exception of the gas line, it's all forest.
But, I mean, this is not a critter-sensitive area, turtle nesting area, or anything like this?
There are vernal pools. This area right here is a vernal pool within this bulb right here. And there were areas of standing water up in here as well. So there very well may be. There's no endangered species map there. But it's good wildlife habitat, with the exception that it's very noisy because it's right next to the highway. Yep. So that the highway noise really does a job on wildlife use. I'd say for like mammals and birds. For reptiles and amphibians, maybe not so much, because they have the forest and they have the pools to breed in. So, for some, but not all.
Anything else, Bob? Nope. General public, anything? Would you like to request a continuance, or?
I would like to request a continuance so that we can work out those
Next
issues.
meeting or the one after?
Well, I spoke with Wanda earlier today, and it seemed like your August 2 meeting was getting rather full, so we'd be willing to go to the following one if that's more convenient.
August 16th at 7:05?
August 16th, 7:05.
Make a motion to continue to August 16th at 7:05.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Just a comment. Up to
Thank you very much for your time.
Have a good night.
Mr. Levine, we've already dealt with your issue, and we issued the certificate.
Very good. Thank you.
Public hearing for 277 Putnam Hill Road.
That's a wedding. I can map that myself.
Continuance.
Yeah.
Make a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Gordon?
How are you?
Good, and you?
Couldn't be better.
We'll
Little
try to
tired,
keep it that
but
way.
I'm good.
Hi there.
Excuse me, Norman Gamache from Gary and L9, here representing the applicant. I wasn't here the last time, but there was a concern by the commission about whether or not we'd have to go outside the work area that we've shown here. And I think we had sent a typical cross-section for how this area is constructed. The fact that this is a proposed 8-foot diameter monopole and it will have a foundation. Excuse me. I talked to the people who install these, and basically they do that with a drill rig. The actual diameter of the hole for the foundation is no more than 8 to 10 feet wide. No larger than what they need to do to get down. The rest of the activities go down into bedrock. The plan that we gave you was just a typical sample of what they do. They have a geotechnical study done, figure out where bedrock is, and they go into bedrock probably about 17 feet with a drill rig. But the drill rig can do that from above, so they don't have to open up the hole. Basically,
Nobody works down inside the hole?
just goes, nobody works down in the hole. And once it's brought up with the concrete and they put the plate in, then someone will go in there and work in that area.
Maybe you'll hit water, Mike. Maybe you'll hit water.
I don't think I need it right now, Joyce.
But
Just saying.
our closest point is to this flag right here, which is 39 feet away. But it's actually, it's about 3.5 feet higher than where we're actually installing the utilities over here. And there is already a trench here that's acting as an interceptor. So we don't anticipate any issues or even having to go beyond this. And as far as any surplus material, we certainly have plenty of room to start outside the resource area and behind our siltation control. So I'm not sure if there are any other questions or concerns that the commission
Just
has.
curious, I'm having trouble seeing it from here, but the dot that's your base,
Let me bring it up here.
well, I don't care. The dot that's your base for that, or the circle, I guess that's a circle, right?
That right here, yes.
And what scale drawing is that?
This is, this looks like 50 scale. Yep, it's a 50 scale drawing.
So does that circle, what does that circle represent?
Let me just check. That circle says 20, it scales 20 feet, but this scale was 200 feet. That's the wrong scale. Let me just check something. The scale of the overall plan that we submitted to the ZBA was 200 scale to show where this was. That's where this comes from. This scale is actually 20 scale based on these dimensions. And that represents an 8-foot diameter circle.
The only reason I was discussing that at all right, was that it's a lot easier to put a line for limit of temporary disturbance to make sure that you don't run into a problem than it is to come back later on and say, hey, we gotta stop work because we gotta get an amended order of conditions here. So that was the only issue.
Right.
That I don't care. But if it was me, I would ask for a little more room on that side for temporary disturbance That way I know that I got plenty of room to work around there and nobody's gonna be up my back. But if you guys feel that you wanna work within a shoehorn, be my guest. And, we'll tell when we get out there whether or not you need more room. And if you do,
That's your
we'll come
call.
back in here and talk about it.
Well, again, I wasn't sure how they were going to actually install the footing for this, so that's why I made the phone call. I thought that if they were going to be digging a hole with a backhoe, and then forming something up and digging down there, that they would have to make a much larger excavation, especially not knowing where bedrock was. But they assured me they only needed 8 to 10 feet for that footing to get that down and secure it.
Let's keep it there.
Excellent.
We'll stay inside the 40-60 and
Moving right along. Anything
I
else,
like that
Brandon?
game.
No.
I'm good.
Okay.
Do make the change on the drawing so we're not 200 scale.
I'm sorry.
I said we should make a change on the drawing so it doesn't reference the
Yes.
200 scale drawing, please.
Yes. Actually, the scale is correct over here.
Norman's retiring in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Anyone from the public got a comment on this? Good to go?
Let's rehead, because this hasn't been here in a while. What are we gonna do for stormwater? There's going to be some kind of a swale or something?
Yeah, you talked about that the last time we were here. And
Yeah, remind me what I said.
You want me to remind you? You said it was fun. Because we actually designed it, we actually designed it based on your
Right.
On your
There's
recommendation.
gonna be a row of stone on the downhill
Yeah,
side.
Right here is
exactly.
a row of stone, it's gonna connect into the existing, under drain that's out there.
Yes, all right.
Very good.
That was your recommendation.
My recommendation was
Just
to
saying.
My bedtime
take
now.
out all of the pavement, to
Stop
make it
speaking
all
up.
stone, but that'll work.
All righty.
That's it.
Yeah.
Make a motion to close the
Please.
hearing. Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is an RDA, so it's zoom negative.
Make a
Thank you.
motion to issue a negative determination?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Wait,
Hope to
whoa,
see you
whoa,
at
whoa,
Old
whoa,
Golf
whoa,
Course.
whoa, 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 whoa.
Too late. But you can speak.
Did you wanted a plan on the correct
Well,
scale?
not only that, but we still want inspection, don't we, even though it's no order of conditions? Or don't you want to bother to
That's up to
inspect?
you. RDA is a lot less formal.
I understand that, but the entire 2/3 of the work is within the buffer zone, so I'm just asking the committee whether or not they think that inspection is required. If not, I mean, you're putting up silt fence, I believe, we're putting
Oh,
up
yeah.
silt fence, we're putting up, and personally, I think your silt fence going through the parking lot should be held down with cement blocks and not just laid on top of the asphalt.
I agree with that.
But, if we're putting down
I'm just trying to talk to me. Go ahead.
I'd just say if they're having to install silt fence and so forth, even though I'm posing the question.
Close the public hearing.
That's all right, it's such a small area, Bob, I have no problem making sure that we take care of all that. Believe me, I don't want you guys.
There's no order of conditions on an IDA, right?
But you
Correct.
can't, you could have-
Which, RDA, the orders of conditions require pre-construction review. RDA generally does not, because it's, the impact is considered so minimal, it's not required that level
So,
of detail.
can
But
take it
that,
right
of
over there.
course, there's nothing saying the commission can't require it.
Right.
And I think that Bob just missed
We're going too fast, I'm sorry.
We're responsible. Come down and check me out.
Okay.
We'll make sure it's good. I know you'll be there. Thank you.
Good night.
Public hearing for 28 Wheelock Road is asked to continue.
It's getting hot in here.
Make a motion to continue to August 2nd at 7:50.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Almost on time now. For conservation.
Only 15 minutes.
Catch it up.
Mr. Valencourt, would like to come up and talk to us about
I'd love to try.
things you've done.
My wife is so intimidated, she doesn't want to come up front.
Come on down, Judith.
She's afraid. When we,
Could you state your name for the record and your address?
Gary Valencourt, 612 Central Turnpike, born on a mountaintop in Tennessee. No, sorry.
Rocky Top?
Yeah, Rocky Top. When we came before you last time, you were very gracious in getting us to a deadline, and we frantically were putting trees on the map and things. So since we built the house, we have a couple of things. Number one is we had always planned on putting a patio and formal gardens in the backyard. So inside of the erosion control was all used by construction. When the construction was done, rather than planting lawn, we set up to do a patio and gardens. On an informal visit by one of your members,
I was down there having wine, and I said,
We-
what are
we-
you doing here?
yeah, we were kind of informed that it's closer to the wetlands than it should be. Our backyard is literally 25 to 35 feet. It is completely surrounded in the back by a forest, heavily forest.
Excuse me, Mr. Valencourt, what year was this submitted?
I have no idea.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
maybe
2
3.
years,
It seemed like it
yeah.
was a lifetime ago.
No, not the original,
Oh,
the original one.
oh,
I'm looking for it, I can't
I
find it.
think it's before that.
It's in the file. There's a file.
Right here, handy by.
Yeah,
I could look,
you could.
or I could have you do it.
I don't have my glasses.
Welcome to Sutton.
It's been the last 5 years. right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. 3, I'd say.
9/14.
3 years ago,
Yeah, right in the front, you see that.
September 14th, 14.
We just finished the house in December, just started landscaping now. Basically, our house, I guess, is within 100 feet, is just at 100 feet of the wetlands without any yard in the back. We had always planned on the patio, we just didn't realize that we went right up to the,
You've got a patio shown, you just didn't install it as shown.
That is correct, it's not installed at all, it's prepared to be installed.
Yeah, I have a copy of the plan digitally up on the screen if you want to point it for now, Mr. Valencourt.
We have the patio here, up in here, and now we're going right up to the erosion control, wherever that is.
We would like to go right up to the.
That, I would appreciate being able to go up to the erosion control, so I can have a backyard that has something to it. And we intend to plant some indigenous bushes in the patio area to begin with, but, so.
See if I can find some pictures of what it looks like, I don't know, a few years ago anyway.
We're on a hill, so I don't know if you can see pictures. That's why you're sitting in the back, Jude?
No,
I mean, it's,
doesn't look like I have anything. Anyway,
Do you want to discuss anything else out in the front of the house, Mr. Valencourt?
yeah, I would love to discuss a couple of other things. We agreed to do 22 oak trees at 2.5 inches. When we staked it out a couple of weeks ago, we could squeeze in 16, and 4 of those would be right next to other trees. So I don't think there's any way we can get 22 in. I'd like to go with 12 if we can. The other thing is that the 2.5-inch trees run $400 a piece from Weston.
We know, yeah.
Would require equipment to come in and dig the holes, would ruin the lawns that we've got in. I would like to be able to bring them down to 1 inch to whatever it is, the next size down. Part of the reason for that is that we were completely defoliated by gypsy moths. And my gut feeling is if I were to put $400 trees in this year, we would probably be defoliated again next year. So I'd like to cut that down. The third thing, should I go on further?
Let's get them all out.
Let's get them all up. The third thing is we agreed to do 22 blueberry bushes. We've gone to Western Nursery and we would like to come up with a combination of 3 indigenous plants. We'd like to do blueberry bushes, winterberries, and boxwood. And then the 22 is not an issue.
33.
And the last and final item.
That's it?
No, it isn't.
Oh, what's the last one?
I think your driveway you want to talk about a little bit too.
My driveway, we extended because we were not able to turn around a vehicle in that time period. So heaven help at my age, getting an ambulance in there and out of there would have been pretty treacherous, so we did extend the driveway as well.
You're not going to get Citizen of the Year.
I'm sorry?
You are not going to get Citizen of the Year.
I prefer not to come back again. Oh, need the ambulance shortly thereafter. However, we built the house big enough so we can get through with wheelchairs.
You also changed the swale there, too.
You got permission for that.
I know, but that was changed from the original plan.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a minor field change.
Yeah.
So the bigger part, the first part of it was the patio?
We'd just like to build a patio in the backyard. The patio will be a patio with formal gardens.
So beyond what was this patio area right shown on the...
We basically have extended it out to the erosion control.
You already have? But you want
We don't have we have all of the preparation in.
Okay.
We would have done it, except I was not cognizant of the wetlands until
He gets scolded.
so I was scolded.
See, this is what I don't understand. People come, they agree to plans, and then they do what they damn well please, and this is what I don't
Well, to
understand.
be perfectly honest with you, I'll plead ignorance, because honestly, when I saw the erosion control, and we completely dug it up for construction, my feeling was that that area was okay to work with, not realizing that it was too close to the wetland.
But you came to the meeting, and you listened to the plans, and you
Joyce,
know, I know, I feel like, you know, you agreed to the plans, and this is what happens all the time to us, that people agree to plans, and then they ignore them.
First of all, I haven't ignored it. Second of all, if I agreed to the plan, if you remember, we frantically left this room and went in the next room and dotted trees on because we had no consciousness. We had not been prepared. We put trees on. I mean, I can put 22 trees in. I'm going to put them too close to each other. And I mean, 22 trees at $400 a piece, and then have them defoliated next year?
You're the one that built the house here, Gary. You know?
Let's start with the first one.
Yep.
Mitigation, you've already agreed to take care of all the invasives. I'm asking Brandon now.
Is that part of the order?
We have agreed, we have taken out the bittersweet and we'll work on that.
And I can appreciate the fact that you want a nice patio and the rest of it, but, you know,
There's nothing in the order of conditions talk about invasive plant removal in this case. So
So
that
we
doesn't-
might have
that was
some
an issue.
mitigation somewhere.
Okay.
The trees along the back line are right up
It's right
against,
against its border.
right up
It's
against
right up against
the
the
forest.
erosion control. Yep.
Out in the front, there's nothing there,
Out in
right?
the front, there's nothing. There's trees along the borders. That's,
Yeah. The driveway is where you were gonna have lawn, and you put a driveway in, is that
very extent correct.
reasonably correct?
and I remember Judy saying you didn't want to mow lawn anyway.
Plus, the fact is, once we started to get on the property, we realized
How small it was.
it was how small we couldn't turn around. I mean, it was literally,
Like the police station.
I don't know about the, I saw all the diagrams and I just kind of chuckled at that.
The patio area is already just, what's it, gravel? Now?
It's gravel, it's patio.
Gravel.
Right. It was all construction. It was all
Yeah.
of the construction zone.
So it's leveled out?
How close to the wetland is it? Within 25 feet?
Where's the erosion control limit of construction?
Well, my 2 cents is I
Go
think that you have room to allow him to grow as long as what he's doing is within the pre-existing limit of work.
Yeah.
I think that extending the limits of work to be bigger is the real
Yeah,
issue.
we're not gonna do that.
Right. So, you know, you get the issues with the patio, and then patio, you get issues with, well, are there gonna be any issues with runoff that is gonna go into the woods and into the wetland? Same thing with the driveway. So those are, you know, 2 things you gotta think about. And then it all comes down to the mitigation for the original project and any additional or whatever you wanna do for, what he wants to do now.
Well, on the patio, you're planting plantings, trees, bushes,
Right.
so it's not like it's all gonna be concrete.
That's correct.
So
No
the water-
concrete at all. yeah.
Pavers, I believe.
Pavers.
Pavers and rectangular gardens.
I actually didn't expect you to do concrete, but,
Yeah. Thank you. So there will be indigenous
So there-
plants in that area.
The driveway out in front is gravel,
It's all gravel.
and there's a stone wall there too, right?
There are stone walls surrounding it, surrounding the septic system, and then
Yeah.
surrounding the property because of the elevation. We're on a hill when we built it.
Yep.
So they
That's a
don't have
hill?
It was a hill.
That's a hill.
That was a hill compared to the other.
it was an island.
It was an island. That's right. And we found the original wall from the clam shack on the bottom of the driveway, too.
Oh. That was before my time, too. Now,
This is all you.
Thank you.
you didn't think of coming to tell us the driveway was changing as you were doing it, which I think it says in the order conditions that if there's any changes, you have to come before us. But,
You know, Joyce, I have to tell you, you know something? I really figured that the erosion control was the buffer area to work with. So it was ignorance as opposed to deliberate. I mean, that was just.
I
never thought of it.
understand, nobody ever reads the, what is it,
I could read
conditions,
it,
yeah.
but I mean,
Nobody ever reads them. I'm just
You're
taking
frustrated.
out my frustration
I know.
because this happens all the time.
And she
And
can
we
beat up
go-
on you.
And we go through, yeah, I can beat up on you, but we go through all of this rigmarole with everybody, and then, once they get the thing, out the window it goes.
and that's why I'm here now, prior to having built the patio.
Thank you.
How much more driveway than what it was supposed to be? Double?
No.
10 by 10? The little bump out, is that all?
Up
it
here,
is?
we went up to there, and we went up into there. That's, we went to the.
And it was already
It's out,
disturbed area.
it's out in front that he's got.
Of the front, it's a circular driveway.
Just a circular, you
Yeah.
Not
added.
paved though.
Yep.
Over here?
He went out in front of the septic system.
And that was supposed to be lawn or whatever.
It's supposed to be lawn.
Oh, so there's a little circle right here?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's out closer to the,
Well, I do
Limit of
remember
work.
saying, I
We
don't
did talk
remember,
about it, yeah.
we talked about the driveway because you didn't want people backing out onto Central Turnpike there.
Well, the big issue is, did he work past his limits? And then the second question is, because it's impervious area, even if it's gravel, gravel
it's
still
not
runs
really
off.
impervious.
It's not, yeah, it's not like forest floor, so the question is, well, what impact does that have on the overall runoff, and is that too much? And, yeah, they are doing more, and he's got questions about, wants to reduce the number of trees and the size of the
Yeah.
trees and
The
the
size of the
shrubs.
trees, I don't think you're gonna get a lot of relief on.
I'm not paying what?
A lot of relief on. If we do it for you, Gary, we're gonna do it for everybody
Okay.
else that
Then
comes
I'd like
in.
to cut the
That's
quantity.
just not gonna happen. The quantity, you might get some relief on, but the size, and that's me speaking, but
Will this require an as-built now because of the changes in the plans?
That's discretionary to the commission, and I recommend discussion.
Can you take that thing down in the middle, please?
Oh, all right. You want me to go
Wait a minute.
anywhere?
here you go, Bob. This is what you really want. I think Wayne should fill this empty seat up here.
We get decent candy.
Spirited conversations.
Looks like a lot of fun to me.
Probably I'll get arrested leaving here tonight because of the police station.
How far is this from the wetlands?
The erosion controls are right there for the limit of work.
Yeah, how far away?
Bob's got the drawing.
How far away is the limit of work from the wetlands?
Depends on where you want to talk. It's a lot narrower over here
Yeah, I remember that was,
than it is back here. Scales. It's half scale. What's the
Do you
driveway
have that
here?
drawing, Gary?
Gary, what's the driveway?
Where's the driveway?
What is the driveway, for one thing? What's it made out of?
It's made out of compacted gravel out of the pit in Oxford. It's pretty packed it down.
And that's what it's gonna stay, it's not gonna be asphalt?
I don't intend to asphalt it.
And the driveway that, the loop in front of the house?
Yep.
How does that go?
It comes up by the property and goes right in front of the house and down.
Around the leach field, pretty
Yeah,
much, right?
Right around the leach field.
Show us.
Goes right around the leach field up through the whole front yard, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Now, by the way, with all of this rain, we've had no issues with any runoff. It's absorbed into the gravel and the sand is up there.
Makes a loop around, and comes back into the main driveway coming in.
Correct.
And it
Off the
goes,
main and around.
goes around like this?
Yeah.
So how about that stone wall that goes around the septic system? Was that affected by the driveway construction?
We put the stone wall in.
You
We put the
did.
stone wall into, we just put the stone wall, we have such slopes. We didn't want to see such slopes, we put the stone wall in.
Right, yeah, so, with the plan, I see the stone wall right there.
So where's the driveway?
So, yes.
Inside of the drive, inside of the stone wall.
It's nice and tight?
Oh, nice stone. Beautiful.
On top of septic system, basically.
Right handy, too.
So there's driveway where you intended to plant trees before?
Where the perennial garden
Trees
was.
with it. We can still put some trees in there, but it's a whole copse of forest. There's trees already in there, so we could put some in there, but they're gonna be in between other trees.
Even if you eliminate the driveway, and that was grass right now, it's not that big of an area.
No, it's not.
It's almost the same thing we have on Manchog Road with that many trees.
You might want to plant something besides oaks. You might want to plant something else at the,
I would love to plant something besides oaks, but I'm not sure what we
I
should
don't know why
plant.
you proposed planting all those trees.
Because I was
there.
stupid. I was in such a process to get it through so we could start the process. And Brandon said oaks, and he said red, yellow, and blue oaks, or red, black, and I forget. Purple. Purple oaks, yeah. And
They were a good choice. This was before the gypsy moth outbreak.
let me tell you, I was completely devastated by the gypsy moths.
I mean, a lot of people were.
Yeah, but they're coming back.
They'll be back again next year once I plant them.
yeah, but ginkgo trees, they don't eat, but those aren't
Indigenous.
indigenous, yeah.
You get it.
I'm gaining. 5 years here, I'm gaining.
I like to plant New Dawn sequoias, but I don't think they're indigenous to the area.
Birch, paper birch.
Maples,
Maple,
pines.
sugar maple, non-Norway maple, different kinds of maples. Sassafras is a good one.
Sassafras would grow in the
Good
shade,
dry,
yeah.
How much do you look at?
Patio in the
I'm
back.
fine with the patio, and I'm fine with the bushes, the additional
Other
change in
than
bushes.
He did it, and now he's coming and begging forgiveness after
Yeah.
the fact, and
How important is a circular driveway? Just asking.
They gotta answer that.
don't think he heard you.
I'm sorry.
Bob asked how important the circular driveway was to you.
We couldn't get in and out of the house. We couldn't turn around. There was no way for us to really, I mean, if you've driven it, it's
Even with the extension in the
even
back?
with the extension. I mean, because there's no place to park.
Now, I think one of the other issues you've got is on the lower corner of the house there, it's the access to getting into your basement. is
Gets us
out
into the
there.
basement.
Not that that's our issue, but yeah.
I mean, which enabled us to physically move in, which was a whole,
Well, that's because you took so long to
that's
get it
because we had
built.
so damn much stuff, right, I know.
Patio on the back, Bob,
Yeah,
no issue. Moving right along. I think we are gonna need an as-built on this. Trees, I think you should take a drawing like that, lay out what you propose to do.
What I'd like to do is.
Lay it out.
Okay.
So we can see it,
Fine.
and we can know what we're agreeing to. So when we come down to visit you again.
And
we
you
can
know what
inspect it.
you're agreeing to.
I know what I'm agreeing to.
Yes, Judy. Stand up and state your name.
She's afraid to.
You have a
Not my
comment.
fault, but when I just looked, and honestly, the night we were here, I'm still a wreck being here, but when we were here trying to get it passed for the third time or whatever it was, and she took us into that room and we
Yeah, you'd agree to anything, I understand, but you agreed to it.
2.25-inch caliber trees at 400 pounds and have a humongous group of people.
That's the standard.
How do you get them into the ground without bringing, you can't dig a hole?
5 guys.
You can, but other people can.
That's the
Don't
standard.
you have to bring big equipment to dig those in? No?
Some do, some don't.
Some don't? I mean, I just did this like 2 weeks ago, looking at these, because we've been
This is,
worried about.
that's
the
nothing
trees.
you two are gonna do.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, I don't even know if physically they can bring, I looked at these trucks that they.
Trust me, they can get it done.
They can get it done?
Trust me.
That's been the standard since before my time, and I've been here almost 10 years.
Okay, so I will come back with the layout of where the trees go. Fine.
And, you know, mix and match. You don't have to do all oaks or whatever.
Well, hold on, you gave me
Yeah.
a couple of ideas. You had said birch, sassafras, and maple, just not northern maple.
Just
No.
not Norway.
No.
Norway maple.
You can't sell it in Massachusetts now anyway.
He'd go to Connecticut and get in trouble.
Okay. And the indigenous plants, those three are okay with you guys?
Yep.
Fine.
Winterberry,
Boxwood and blueberry.
Boxwood is
Boxwood is
not native.
Excuse me, I spent a lot of time on this. When I talked to Western Nursery, they said that it absolutely is indigenous, it's been here for over 300 years.
With that, if it's been here only for 300 years, that sounds like there's some Englishman.
Right, it does.
Yeah.
It does, but
Yeah,
however.
it's not
if you look- If you
indigenous.
look at the land that we're in, that land is completely regrown twice in that time period. That was completely cleared out over the years, several times. So,
Well, you bring
Violators.
a statement saying it's indigenous and.
Well, you know what we
okay.
need? We need the genus and the species, and then I can look it up.
or a letter from Weston that says it's indigenous, would that work?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
They're
boxes.
salespeople, Gary, we,
Yeah.
salespeople.
Hey, watch the salespeople comment.
Not gonna change who I am.
The folks at Weston don't intimidate me.
They intimidated me.
Only the price.
It wasn't even the price, it's just what fits into the box that we're gonna
No,
plant in
I
the
think
back
you
end.
agreed to too many trees.
Yeah,
Shame on you. But here we are, let's get it straight and move forward.
fine.
Driveway in the front.
Okay,
I think Brandon and I should come up and visit you. Just
I-
look at that and see how it's laid out. Maybe Bob wants to come along too, just,
be happy to do that.
just,
So we're okay to go in the patio, we're gonna come back with a drawing of the trees,
Yep.
and I need to get something that verifies that Boxwood's indigenous.
you know, and when you get all done, you're gonna have to give us a drawing that says, this is what we built, because there are just so many changes.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Anybody from the public want to comment on this process?
Wait,
Thank you
Thank you.
for coming in.
Was it that bad, Judy? What do you mean, yes?
She's been in for 2 hours.
Better if you walk and show us where you belong, so we don't do anything else wrong.
Just read your information and follow the plans.
Clint?
thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Plan, so we go back in here.
Is this it? No.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not quite there.
Okay,
Did 7 Outlook.
You did 7 Outlook, minutes, June 7th. Joyce and I have kind of been able to finish those. The 21st I sent to Bob. I didn't get anything back, so I didn't know what you.
I didn't see anything.
I don't remember.
Well, I didn't have the 7th on my computer for some reason, wanted to send them to me the afternoon, I did those. I can't do the 21st because that's the day I wasn't here, so she sent them to Bob.
I didn't know she'd send them to me for rewriting.
She said,
Oh, well, I sent them to you and asked if then you added what you thought, you know, what you thought.
As I said,
and to send them back to
If you
her.
wanna,
I didn't read all that, Dory.
Yeah.
send them back, I can send them to Joyce. I
But I
listened to
d-
the meeting
yeah.
on the 7th, that's how I was able to type those up. If you download them onto your computer, you can stop and go and stop and go. And it's done by numbers, and I was able to do that. So, on the 21st. if
Well,
you-
why don't you send, well, I don't know. Anybody else want to do it besides Bob for the 21st?
What are we doing?
The minutes.
Read through the minutes
are a
and
problem.
make corrections or whatever, and, because I wasn't here, I was
Can
on
you
my way
email them
home.
out?
Why don't you just send them out?
And
They're
we'll
not
review.
right.
I can send them to everybody if you want.
85 8 Lots Road, why is that on here?
That's premature.
Okay.
Mr. Goolbody has to fill out the paperwork and get his engineer to write the substantial compliance letter. That being said, I did go out there at his request while I was already in town.
Yep.
Site stable, we did make some amendments, which is why the engineer's letter is very necessary, but one thing that's still in dire need of getting done is the invasive species removal. I know that he did have a company do a once-through a couple of years ago, but they haven't followed up, so now all those plants
Yep.
grow back. And
Yep.
he needs to,
Gotta get it
think
done.
about invasives
Yep.
as they come back, so he needs to take care of that.
Solar farm? That just leftovers?
That's the,
I meant
Or
to
on
go
the-
out there today and do a status inspection, but I had some family emergency stuff that prevented me from getting there.
do you want me to put on next meeting?
Yes.
192, 198, they haven't responded?
Let's see, I sent out the first letters that didn't get to them because I did not know
Yeah,
that they were
we heard that.
coming in, so.
You
I
sent
the
other
second
letters.
one.
They
Have
haven't
not heard
responded?
back. No.
Okay.
How long do you
Guideline
want
changes?
to let it go?
Not very much longer. What can
Next
we do?
meeting.
And put it on the agenda for next meeting?
Cease and desist?
Okay, the other
What do you-
question-
What do you do if they don't respond?
Well, one of them,
Talk about
I thought one of them had responded,
Porter
Yeah.
Stevens.
and that was the one with the wall. He rebuilt the wall or something in front of his house, and it was a question as to whether or not we were gonna allow him to do the wall or something along that line.
You're right.
I don't remember that.
That must have been at the meeting on this one. I don't
His-
remember that either.
Yeah, he sent a letter back saying basically rebuilt the farm wall, if I remember correctly, and he was allowed to do a split rail fence and put the wall back instead, I think is what it was.
I don't remember seeing that.
I don't remember seeing that either.
Wanda
You
sent
missed the
it.
meeting too, didn't you?
It was one of those houses, I don't know which one.
I believe it was Porter Stevens.
And he said that he was the one that had the drainage structure we had him built coming off, and he had a picture of that, and he said he was cleaning that out, or gonna clean it out, and it's been working properly.
So it's built, it's working good.
That's what he said.
Everything looked stable driving by.
The only big issue, I think, was the stone wall. And are you satisfied with his explanation?
Yes.
Take them off the list.
So still waiting to hear from the other guy.
Take who off the list?
Well, we're taking him
Porter
off,
Stevens, put a note in the file saying that he's done.
but we still gotta encourage him to complete his order of conditions somehow, which is the main
And,
purpose of the letter to start with, was to complete his order of conditions.
Does he think that letter back to us is his way of completing it? That,
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
It isn't, yeah.
no, I know it's not, but, you know, he might want to close it out.
Well, we want him to close it out.
Because there's no erosion controls up.
Okay, the other question I have is about his notice mailing. Everybody around here seems to be actually mailing out also because they all do. I'm thinking the RDA one, maybe, the notice of offense, maybe we should just leave the engineers to it.
I think we should leave the engineers do all of it.
All of them? Okay.
I think so too.
Bill?
I agree.
Bob?
Agree.
Done.
42 Bond Hall Road, it sounds like they're doing work up there.
They received their checks, both 42 and 11 received their checks. I got that information on Monday when I came back in. So they're all set.
There was still a question as to whether or not Brandon should be held responsible for reimbursing, or whether it was ours being the town's
I'll meet with Jim
responsibility.
on that. I'll meet with Jim on that.
I think we agreed
I
that,
agree.
you know, as a committee, that it should not be Brandon's responsibility. Am I correct?
I'm sure I'll be talking to him about the police station too. Is that my favorite time of the night now?
One
more
I have
thing.
one thing.
Go quick.
Ross Express, did you ever send out the letter to them? Did
They were in,
They came in when the meeting you were gone.
Yeah,
Okay.
you were
and they had
gone.
all permissions.
It's on that.
It's on their
It's
order
on the
conditions.
21st.
Okay. All right.
Anything else? Anything from the general public that they want to discuss?
No, I just liked the way the board talked about the police station there, because I agreed, being on the building committee, that the lot is too small for the building. 14,000 square feet is just way too much for building to put on that lot. I didn't agree with that, but I was brought on the building committee after the fact, after the site was already agreed on, the building was already agreed what they would be putting in there. I was asked to come on board at a later date. And so now it's almost like they're going to stamp on it.
Not gonna happen.
Exactly, not going to happen. And I'm not really in favor of what we're doing right now on the building. Yes.
So just that you don't realize how steep 10% is
I know.
until you walk up 10% or drive down 10%. It's ridiculously steep. I mean, it's much steeper than the norm on any roads. Subdivision roads, rules, regulations do not allow for 10%. I mean, it's ridiculously steep. And to have that steep a slope back there, it's just, you're asking for problems.
No, I'm hoping that their engineering is going to come back with something different, a different layout or something with the building there, something better.
If they're going out to bid next week on a building, it's gonna be real hard for them to do anything.
That's really,
Not our issue.
Mhm.
Not our issue. Like when you were inspecting for fire stuff. It wasn't your issue, was it?
I am gonna make
Anyways, I appreciate the comments that came up.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're done.